what's up you beautiful people? Today I'll be going over how to reimage a Windows 10 device with a USB stick using Rufus. Why Rufus? Because I had trouble getting the Windows 10 media creation tool to flash the boot files to the USB stick. So I used the tool to create an ISO and Rufus to flash the ISO to the USB stick. As always, feel free to ask any questions in the comments. Let's get into it. So the first thing you need to do is find your product key. Now, one of the simplest ways to go about doing that is just go into the registry. So I save the path here. You can copy that path. I'm going to put it in the description and just paste it. And I already set it up, so it's going to pull me right into there. As you can see, that's the path, but you just paste it up in that bar like so. And then there it is. Now that part, the backup product key default, that's where the registry key is, and then that string of numbers and letters is the key, starting with DX. Now I don't have a real key. This is actually done on a virtual machine using VirtualBox on a Mac, but that's where you find the key. The next thing you want to do is download the Windows 10 ISO from Microsoft.com as shown here. You don't want to do the update now, not for this one. All you're going to do is download the media creation tool. And that's how you do it. You just do download now. Doesn't take that long. Next thing you're going to do is download Rufus, because for this demonstration I'm using Rufus to put the image onto the USB stick. You could do it with the tool, but I had trouble with that, so I opted to just install the ISO and then install that onto the USB drive with Rufus. So open the Windows 10 media creation tool. It'll take a little while. I sped it up here a bit, skipped through some stuff, press accept. Don't upgrade now. What you're gonna do is create the media, and you could change it to some other type here. But since this is for re-imaging, you might as well use the same hardware and software. It's going to be the same 64-bit. Go ahead and do ISO, because we're using Rufus instead of just putting it directly onto the flash drive, which might seem counterintuitive. Just in my use case, it wasn't. You could try doing it that way. I already have an image built, so I'm not going to actually go through with this. But if you did, you would go ahead and press save and then press next. Once the image is created, then you would open up Rufus, and that's where we would put the image onto the USB stick. At this point, you're going to want to make sure that you have the ISO selected, the one that you just created, right? And also that you have the right device. That's going to be the USB device. If you don't want to overwrite something else, I know which one it is, and you can see I already did this process, so it has the flash information in there, all the boot information. But then you would go ahead and press start. I'm not going to do that. You leave all the defaults the same. Rufus will go through the process of flashing, and then you'll see the USB filled with all the stuff there, just like I have it, because I already did this process. Next thing is booting up your computer after attaching the thumb drive. You're going to want to Google what your BIOS model is to know how to get into the boot menu at the very least, and you might even need to go into the BIOS depending on how locked down it is. That way you can boot from the stick. Once it starts, you'll be greeted with a menu like this. Go ahead and click install. It'll take a little bit of time, and then you're going to be greeted with the product key license key activation part. I don't have one actually, even though I showed one. It's just some fake one from the VirtualBox. I guess it gets generated. I tried entering it, didn't work. So I just go ahead and click that, and then I select which version I want to use. I'm going to use the Pro Workstation, but it'll automatically select the right version for your license if you put the license key in, if you have one. You can totally do this with a non-activated Windows. I've done that. It works fine. Again, assuming that you are re-imaging a device that you have already for whatever reason, you are going to have to go ahead and delete all the partitions. So remember, if you can, back all that stuff up before you do this, because everything that's on the old Reimaging computer, is going to be kaput. I sped this up. It takes quite some time, so might as well go ahead, walk away from your computer and do whatever. And then once it's done, you'll basically go through a account setup step. At this point, the machine reboots. You'll see your boot splash screen, and then Windows will start working. Now, if you did have to change the boot order in BIOS, you might have to either unplug the device or go back into BIOS and change it so that it boots from the hard disk. If you just did it from the boot menu, you should be okay. But if it keeps going back through the initial starting menu, like you see there in the top right card, then it's still trying to boot from the USB stick, and you need to change that in BIOS. Now at this point, as you can see, it's mostly just clicking through the defaults. Unless you want to change something, I pretty much stick with the defaults 100% of the time. I'm skipping through this because I edited this after I recorded all the video, just because it can be a lengthy process depending on your hardware. Now, unless you have a domain, go ahead and set up for personal use. But if you do have a domain, do what you do. You probably already know the deal there. I've opted for an offline account here, so I'm not going to enter an email address. And I think the next thing that comes up is limited experience, which I select because I'm just trying to really limit the install time, and I can do all this later. I'm just going to name it admin, and I'm going to give it a password of no password, which means you don't have to enter nothing twice. You just press enter once and it realizes, okay, well, that's no password. And you can uncheck those, check them, read through them at your leisure. I just go ahead and accept. I skip everything I can, just like I did here, skipping that too with not now. And then you should get landed onto the computer. This is sped up again because it takes a lot of time. It's very annoying, but this is the process. And then, bam, you're there on the desktop and you can do whatever you're going to do. Well, thank you for listening. I hope you all have a great day. And feel free to drop any comments and with questions or whatever down below.